what does sexuality mean to me? I guess it means pleasure. And I guess it can also mean pain if you want to play with that. But I think fundamentally it means pleasure and it means connection to my body. And I think particularly for people with disabilities, we're taught to internalize a lot of shame around our bodies and kind of want a normal experience. And so for me, finding ways to get in touch with my body, whether that be masturbation, whether that be sex with other people, and actually feel what it actually feels like and actually allow my body to experience that and react the ways it wants to react and move the ways it wants to move and experience pleasure was actually a pretty radical thing, because learning how to connect with something that you've been taught to feel so disconnected from is a bit of a process, and it's kind of an ongoing one. And I think particularly for women with disabilities, it's really important that we develop a language around our bodies and our desires and our sexualities, because often we're not given sex education, we're not taught about consent, all these kind of really important things. And if we are told anything about our bodies, it's all from this space of you're flawed, or you've got these things wrong with you that you're going to have to manage to get anyone to want to be intimate with you, and you should just be grateful for whatever you can kind of get. I got a lot of that messaging from a bunch of different people in my life growing up. And so people really aren't given a perspective of their bodies or a language of their bodies that's strength-based, that's pleasure-based, that looks at what do you want to do with your body? What feels good? How can you explore that? I think sexuality and our sexual and gendered expression as people with disabilities is the area of our biggest oppression. And yet it's often not focused on at all. I think all these structural issues about making transport more accessible, making buildings more accessible, making employment more available for people with disabilities, they're really, really, really important for changing what the world looks like for us and giving us equality. But so too are our intimate relationships. They're super important as well. You know, our capacity to feel love and connected and proud of who we are is just as important as whether or not we can get on the local bus or the tram or have access into a building. So this idea that, you know, we can be loved, we're worthy of love, we can be desired, and desired in a way that doesn't fetishize us, that doesn't look at the chair and presume that therefore I'm going to be passive in bed because, of course, you know, people with disabilities are just going to be grateful for whatever they can get, and that therefore they're going to behave in particular ways if you sleep with them. That those kind of ideas are still pretty prevalent, I think. But I guess as a young person, I'd grown up with quite a lot of medical intervention on my body for years and years. And I'd really internalized this idea that there was something inherently wrong with me, that I needed to be fixed or cured, and I should kind of spend my life hoping for a normal body. And so when I discovered the social model of disability that said, hey, you're not wrong, you're not the problem. The issue is a society which has failed to include people like you, and, you know, stereotypes and all these kind of ways of looking at disability which don't allow you to be a whole, complex, nuanced person. Discovering these ideas was really, really amazing, because it helped me reframe the issues from me being the problem to the way in which society was structured was the issue. And then I could kind of go, well, actually, if it's been created this way, so too can it be changed. I think access is a really big issue, particularly in the queer community, but also everywhere. So many spaces are inaccessible. So people just aren't used to seeing people with disabilities in a nightclub having a pash on a Saturday night, or, you know, at a community event, or, you know, being part of the community, just being out and living lives like everyone else. And so when I find my way into those spaces, people are surprised. People are still like I've been in a gay bar looking like this. Like, I think I flag dyke pretty hard. And I've had like a woman come up to me equally as dykey and go, honey, do you know you're in a gay bar? Like, I must have kind of wheeled in there and got a bit confused and was just going, where am I? There's these assumptions that people with disabilities should just stay at home and live sad, miserable lives where we kind of sit on the couch all day and wish we could be normal. These kind of ideas need to start to be really challenged and changed. And one of the key ways that we see that is if we make society more accessible, but also if we see people with disabilities in the media, you know, talking about their lives and their identities and themselves in ways that counter these narratives of disability as tragedy or disability as inspiration. Because I think for me as a young person growing up, there really was nothing. Like, I had no idea of what my future would look like. I was pretty sure that I was just going to die, even though my disability isn't terminal at all, because I had no concept of who I could become, of, you know, if I could have a job, what that might look like, that I could have a partner, that I could aspire to have kids, all those kind of things just weren't modeled to me at all. Yeah, so my journey with sexuality. I guess, yeah, it's been a bit of a long one. And when I do things like this, I sometimes think, who do I want to speak to? Like, what is my primary audience or my primary person if I could put a message out there? And I guess I think back to that 16-year-old in the small country town feeling shit about herself, and wondering if she had a future and what that looked like. And so even though I feel miles away from that now, thankfully, I still don't want to pretend like it's been easy and like it hasn't been a journey to get here, because I think that wouldn't speak to her. She would go, I don't believe you. Finding my own voice and finding my own narrative and knowing what that is and knowing what my politics are, is an act of pride in a world that tells me that I shouldn't have them, or that I'm wrong, or that, you know, I'm viewing things not in the right way. So yeah, I think holding on to that and going, no, I'm valuable and the ways that I see things are important. And then on a personal level, even though the political is personal, on a bodily personal level, learning how to inhabit my body is an act of pride and resilience. Learning how to feel what it feels like and move in the way that it wants to move, and no longer being ashamed of that, but being proud of that. Oh, I love so many things about my body now, and as a young person, I never thought I would say that. Like, yeah, it's really sad to reflect on how I used to feel. Yeah, I used to kind of think I must be the most monstrous person ever, and, you know, no one could want this body. But these days, a lot of people have wanted this body, and I love this body. I love that it's different to most other bodies. I love that it moves differently. I love that my emotions are in my body and I can't hide how I'm feeling. Like, my muscles tense up when I get excited, or when I get passionate, or when I get sad. That I show my feelings differently to everyone else. I love that I move through the world differently. I love how I can feel the lean of gutters and the slopes of hills, and how my chair moves and how my body moves when I'm moving through space. I love that I experience the environment differently, and that I feel at home in that finally. I remember when I was young, I used to wake up in the morning and see my chair beside my bed and go, I don't know how I'm going to get up and get into that. Like, I don't know how to do that and be a person in a chair in the world today. And now I get up and get in it and feel free and feel like it's part of me.